I have to make sure that we do this thing. I'm in charge. I've got to do this and make sure we've got people. There we go.
Nice.
Because I've just spent months working on Zoom and Zoom alone. Because what's happened is, as I was just explaining to you, and people who know the product that I do know this story already, but we've just had obviously COVID, and we've just had all these things going on, and I had a studio in Central Dunedin, and I moved out of that studio to come back home, and this is now my studio, and I went from being only face-to-face podcasts. So if you look at our back catalogue, like the first 70 are only face-to-face bar one, we're up to, I think you're number 130, so that means the next 60 are kind of only Zoom.
Yeah, right.
And so now I'm trying to get back into this idea of, hang on, we're live again now. And pre-COVID, I had a producer as well, and now I'm doing it all myself. And
wow. I'm exhausted for you.
Yeah. So I apologise. There might be a few clunky bits along the way. But the most important thing is the interesting conversations and interesting chats. Oh. And I'm sure that will happen. Now, people who have seen you, would it be fair to say have probably seen you most in The Voice? That would be in the place you'll be with your widest spread and reach of people who have seen your work?
I think so. I'm learning now that is probably the case, because before The Voice, I would say musical theatre, because being in stages for the last 12 years, I would say that. But, reality TV has a wider reach.
I thought what we might do as well is just show a little bit. I won't put too much out there because we're going to get pulled off the old interweb. Yeah. As I said, I've got to do this all myself. So
okay. I believe in you.
We'll do that. Put it up there, and we'll do that, and that means people on the internet can see us.
Oh gosh.
And we'll turn the volume up, so we'll do that, and so people listening here. This is the old. What do they call it? The blind.
Yeah.
The blind audition.
My heart was pounding.
Kelly Rowland.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad she didn't turn around.
Really?
I was nervous.
I would have thought Kelly Rowland would have been a dream.
Yeah, but I mean in terms of not seeing her while I was singing.
Gotcha. So there you go. That'll show us. There you go. Oh, Boy George, that's pretty cool. Come a chameleon. So that is. You're the first person I think I've ever spoken to. I mean, as someone who's been in broadcasting 20-ish years, 20 plus years, you speak to a lot of musicians and artists and that kind of stuff, but I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone who's been on The Voice. Tell us about that experience. I know this is kind of yesterday's news for you, but for people who don't know you, haven't met you, tell us about it.
Oh, I loved the entire experience. It was, we got to hang out with a lot of artists for about 10 hours a day. So that, you get a bit delirious and people start jamming and grab their guitars and have a good time. And
that was you got through quite a way through, but halfway through. Actually, did you get kind of one step away from sort of the final couple?
Yeah, I think they called it the finals or lives or something like that. But yeah, I think it was one round away. I think that was top 24.
And that was the Australian version.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking as I was watching that clip today, isn't it crazy to think that was last year?
Yeah.
And this year, what the world has turned into.
Yeah. Screens everywhere.
Even though the reason we've connected with you is because you're doing a tour with some others that we'll get into as we talk through this.
Of course.
But even that feels so foreign at the moment. I mean, I actually, if I full disclosure, I jumped online. I've got another guest coming in tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I spoke to her earlier in the year during COVID, and she was based in Auckland. And I just thought yesterday, oh shit, if she's coming down from Auckland, people are still saying if you're in Auckland and you're leaving Auckland, you're supposed to keep those level 2 restrictions on the individual, not that. So I said, because if you're coming from Auckland, we'll figure something out. And I just thought today, where have you come from? And I see that this is the start of the tour.
Yeah,
and
you've Auckland yet.
You've only done South Island, and Auckland's at the end, so we're fine.
Yeah,
we're safe. We're not infected.
It is crazy, isn't it?
So it's a crazy world.
Yeah.
Are you here in New Zealand because your bio says that you're Australian based? Have you come back because of COVID? Are you in the country because there's no work going on, or why are you in New Zealand?
Good question. I actually had a 2-month contract at the beginning of the year and was going to head back to Sydney at the end of March. and COVID hit, and we weren't able to do the last 3 shows. We were doing a show called Little Black Bitch. It was a play written by, it is a play written by Jason Tamete. And the last 3 shows we couldn't do because of COVID. And then we were in Auckland, and my cousin said, well, do you want to isolate with us here for the 5 weeks or so? And here we are, how many weeks later?
It was in the March, eh?
Yeah.
So what is it actually? We could have April, May, June, July, August, September. So that's 6 full months, and now we're into October.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I think it's beautiful as well.
Explain.
Being able to be with family, because I haven't been with family for the 12 years that I've been over in Australia for this long. It'll usually be like a week or maybe 3 weeks max. I think that was my last one. So yeah, it's nice, and it's nice to be available to family to help out with certain things, and not have to worry about flights or contracts.
Because you're from Napier?
Yeah.
But you've got family obviously in Auckland, and that's where you've been staying?
No family in Auckland.
Oh,
No.
so I thought you said that your cousin was...
Yeah, she picked me up from Auckland. So she drove from Napier.
Oh, beautiful.
I know, I love it. She drove from Napier to Auckland and then grabbed... It was a 1-day trip. She loves driving. It's weird.
And so you got to hang out for the last several months, aside from what you're doing at the moment, in one of the most beautiful parts of New Zealand.
Yeah.
In a place that I assume Napier didn't have any kind of... There was no COVID in that area. There was no cases. It was all...
There were a few. There were a few just around the corner from where we were staying in Tamatea, in a rest home. But that's all clear now.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty good. I haven't been keeping an eye on stats, the COVID stats in New Zealand.
It is interesting how I'm a bit of a news junkie. I'm a bit of a political junkie. Like I get this, this crazy thing we've all got now. And the first thing I do in the morning is look at my news feeds to see what's happened overnight.
I know someone very close to me that does exactly the same thing, but it's not me.
And I think it's this. I'm the same. It's like during that first lockdown, which I found a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Like, it was a bit, this feels different. I was working in talk radio and stuff when the swine flu hit and the bird flu hit and those ones. And this felt different. And probably because we were forced, there was something about it. And every day at 1 o'clock, watching the news, every day at 1 o'clock, watching the news. But much like yourself, even for me, who kind of is a self-identified political junkie, I haven't really been paying a lot of attention either. So it shows how we've sort of relaxed away from maybe the scary nature of it. But I also think being in the South Island, I don't think we've had a case in the South Island for 130, 140 days. Or whatever
that's so good. That's so good. I actually, to be fair, for someone who doesn't really watch the news or gets too involved politically, 1 o'clock was our religious time where we'd just sit on the couch and tell the child to be quiet at 1 o'clock because Auntie Jay was, having a little chat and Ash.
Auntie Jay. I like that, Auntie Jay. It's funny, she's talked about obviously people who didn't click on talking about Jacinda. She hates being called Cindy.
Yeah, I would too.
It was interesting. I thought that was
I think Jay's a bit more gangster,
Well, she says Jack is what she got called at school.
Oh, okay.
That was her nickname at school, and that's what she's always been. Because I think back to Helen Clark, and I think Auntie Helen. We all call her Auntie Helen. It was like the name.
Yeah,
so Auntie Jacinda. I think it's cool. Yeah, and I think as a country we've done very well. And the thing that I'm aware of is we're more relaxed now than we were in that first lockdown. But I am as you can see, I'm very aware. This stuff is still everywhere. It's in my car. Every time I go to the supermarket, I still, and even here in the South Island, we're another step removed from what's happening up north. I'm, every time the kids come home, wash your hands straight away. So still keeping those practices, because anyone who says this is, we're now fine until the vaccine is an idiot. It will be back again. Some way it'll get in again. So,
it's interesting, the sanitizing process, because again, when it first hit, it's so foreign. So I was a little bit cray-cray, and I made my own little alcohol, lavender oil, rosemary, Palo Santo stick, and I just made that and obviously a huge bottle, and I was just sanitizing everything that would come in. And it was just interesting to see how many things we touch. We don't really clock that, like the trolleys and the car handles and the keys and how often you touch your face. It was almost like a cool experiment to see how often you touch things and don't wash your hands. So yeah, that was interesting at the beginning, and because it was new, that's why it felt scary. I think now that we have an understanding of what we're dealing with, we can now incorporate it into our lives as a new norm.
There was a really good experiment. There's this guy called Mark Rober on the internet, and I'll bring it up and show it to you.
Yeah.
You can see it down here.
Oh, great.
And he did an experiment where he went through classrooms and showed kids what, he put powder on their hands and got them to shake hands, and he got them to show it around.
Yeah.
But just talking about touching the faces, the thing he did, and I'll just find it here. One of the things he did, which was really interesting, was he's a scientist. I think he's that kind of guy. He did an experiment on himself where he sat down for an hour and tried to not touch his face. That was what he did.
Right.
So when you talk about touching your face, let me bring this up for other people to see as well.
Yeah.
I won't play the sound to it, but you can see he puts powder on his own hand, and it's a powder that comes up under a black light. And then he spent an hour working. So he knows he's doing the experiment on himself, and the experiment is, while I work for an hour, I'll try to know, and that was his face afterwards. So that's how much he touched his face in an hour whilst he was trying to not touch his face.
Well, he's being so conscious of not touching his face. Didn't he also have his sleeve over his hand? Right.
But there was other times, and then he does a little bit here where he goes back and has a look, and you can see, just without even thinking, touches his face. So he's just not thinking. So it's a lesson, I think, a lesson to us all that. I just did it then. I always do this with my ridiculous beard. It's the thing we just don't know. So,
and often when I'm talking, if I'm laughing, sometimes I'll do that, or just I don't even know why, but there's a lot of it. Or even when I'm listening,
Do you keep your eye on what's happening in Australia as well? Like, Australia's home, yeah.
Yeah. Well, work-wise, it's been home for the last 12 years, but. Yeah, I haven't given a geographic space for home anymore because that just gets too hard.
And so do you keep an eye on? Are you watching what's happening over there? Are you thinking, when am I going to go back? Is that a part of your sort of, in the next 6 months, what am I going to do?
Yeah, it was when I first got here. It's always been when I'm in New Zealand, when am I going back to Aussie? So I'm in a different space at the moment about that, just because it doesn't feel like such a rush to get back, because everyone is experiencing COVID, so there's no it's an interesting space to be in, but I don't feel like I'm in a rush to get back. Obviously, if/when work comes up, then I'll be back over there.
And your experience in work, you are doing musical theatre.
Yeah.
A lot of musical theatre. And I saw your bio, and it mentioned things like Sister Act and Lion King.
Yeah.
And help me out here. What are some of the others?
Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly was
Hairspray.
like one of the first ones. Yeah. That sounds like the most fun in the world. If you're going to draw a job description for a job, that sounds amazing.
It's pretty amazing. Obviously it's hard work like anything, but it's always rewarding. It's so good. Yeah. 8 shows a week for however long the contract is.
Do you find, obviously you're a singer, do you find the musical and the singing the part you enjoy most of all? Obviously in a lot of musicals there's also acting and spoken dialogue as well. Do you have a preference?
Well, I went into musical theatre as a singer, and then really started discovering the acting, especially screen acting. When I was doing Hairspray, I thought, I would really like to focus on something else in my craft. And it was screen acting, and it was about 2 years of realising that I really, really enjoyed it.
And has that led to other non-musical acting opportunities?
A few TV commercials, just because of availability, because when you're doing 8 shows a week, you're hardly available.
For sure.
So, you kind of have to be available, but then you need to be working, so...
And is that something you want to chase that as well? Do you want to move into telly and film and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different beast. I thought it would be it'll be an easy transition. However, it's completely different, but I love it.
Yeah. Your background in music, it's a really... My family is quite like I was talking to my 14-year-old yesterday. I've just introduced them to Hamilton.
Nice.
And they're like... to a point that they're not ruining it for me now, but it's been a month of Spotify Hamilton every day, every word they know.
Yeah.
But I was talking to my 14-year-old yesterday, and you realise, Papa, it's my dad, granddad. Papa did musicals and stuff, and I did musicals, and they're like, Papa did, and I'm like, it was Gilbert and Sullivan back in the sort of 50s and 60s, and when I was in the 80s and 90s, it was, it was the Phantom of the Operas and the Jesus Christ Superstars and that kind of thing were flowing through schools, and now you guys have got another generation of it coming up, but it seems to be something that each generation has their little pocket of musicals. But at the moment, it seems that there's quite a bit that is coming from film. Yes. So like The Lion King or Sister Act those sorts of movies. And there doesn't seem to be maybe the duos like they've always been. There's more like, the Hamilton that comes out, Lin-Manuel Miranda, or there's the movie adaptation. But is that classic kind of, this is my writing partner, I'm the music guy, we're writing a musical, has that kind of disappeared a bit?
No, I don't think it has. I just think that people are getting smarter and more efficient in using their skills, like Lynn. But I wouldn't say that is falling off. People are just evolving with the times.
Probably in the past, maybe to kind of counter my own argument, in the past you sort of needed a team to get together to like, you think you go one step back further to like Disney movies and stuff, they had their writing partnerships and that's what they did. But like you're saying, that Hamilton is just it's amazing. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
Oh, same here. I'm excited for Australia to have the show.
The only thing I think about Hamilton now is I couldn't imagine seeing it without the original cast. From seeing it on Disney, I kind of think if he wasn't doing it, I mean, it sounds silly, but would I be disappointed? Like 5%. Would I be 5% disappointed not to see him?
I hear what you're saying. Because he created the show, there's something about knowing that when you sit in the theatre and understand the genius behind it all. So I totally understand that.
Well, as someone who's kind of doing, theatre in Australia in particular, I mean, in New Zealand as well, but those big kind of Broadway shows, what is it like to do something that was first done elsewhere and this is then the Australian version or something? How does that get received compared to the Broadway version or the West End version?
To be fair, I think it gets received quite well and with a lot of excitement because it's fresh. It's a fresh cast, which also then means new interpretations of the roles, or keeping the essence of them, of course. And also with Australian theatre, we tour a lot, so there's not that sense of tired or needing to feel fresh because we're moving everywhere. So that's already a sense of feeling fresh in a new space and getting to know a new city and all
so
that.
If you're in Broadway, you're in that theatre for 3 years. If you guys are in Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, whatever. Yeah.
And I think also, Lion King has been in the theatre on Broadway for like 16, maybe 20 years. Wow. I wouldn't know. But imagine sitting there for 16 years, you're just kind of in and out.
One of the things I wanted to ask, I actually approached David Diggs to say, would you come on the podcast?
Yeah.
Because one of the things I wanted to ask was, why do people seem to have quite a short run in Hamilton? Like if you look at the length of time the leads with the original cast were there for, it wasn't 7 years. I mean, it's only been out for a few years.
Yeah.
And most of those leads have already moved on. And I'm like, why? Why would you move? This is like the gold mine at the moment.
What have they moved on to? I'm not very aware of these stats. So if in my opinion, I would say you'd only move on if it was a better contract or you're feeling different. Like for me, I would move on if Screen came along.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, it'll just be a matter of why, and as opposed to, they tied out or they carked it or whatever.
That show, though, I saw an interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he said that, I think it was on Graham Norton actually.
Oh yeah,
he said that he refused to be ill because every night the internet turned up, and he said the one night he was not there.
I saw this one this morning.
Yeah, Beyonce and Jay-Z turned up, and the whole crowd goes, like you missed Queen Bee.
you miss royalty. What? I think he took it out and he went on, didn't he? Isn't that what he said?
I can't remember. I think he was trying to get on, but his wife made him stay or something.
Yeah.
But that seemed obviously as the hottest ticket. Probably before that, you had the guys from South Park in the Book of Mormon. That was probably the next biggest one.
Yeah.
That was one of those, holy crap, this is different. That's interesting, eh? It's when it's different.
Yes.
There's something unique about it, and that's what Book of Mormon, I think, is still and was when it came out. And that's what Hamilton is still and was when it came out. I mean, Hamilton in itself, I think they were saying, sometimes there's an 18-month wait for tickets.
Yeah.
That kind of says it all.
Yeah, I had a few friends that went over and they couldn't get tickets. And I think even then, months ahead, they're selling for like $350 US dollars. It's insane. And that's beautiful. It does say a lot.
It is ridiculous money, though. I think I read that they make about $2 million per showing, like at Broadway, from the ticket prices, and that's what they are.
Wow.
The other one that I was thinking of that I love is the Rocky Horror Show. I was lucky enough to meet and interview Richard O'Brien, the creator of it. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And again, so different, so unique. Like in that space of, the Age of Aquarius and Jesus Christ Superstar. This thing comes up that's just totally left field that smashed everything apart, and it was, and it's still going today.
Yes, good on them, and that's it. I think people enjoy the risks and the danger, outside of societal norms. So
it's probably the same as any art, isn't it? When something comes through, I think it has to be commercially successful.
Yes.
People still have to like it. I mean, there's lots of outsider art out there that is so totally different from anything else, but it doesn't get the mass consumption. So it has to A, be different, B, break through, and then get commercial success. That's your hit forevermore.
Yeah. And it's that I remember doing acting class with Les Chantry in Sydney, and there's he was talking about remixing where there's a sense of familiarity but a slight difference. People need that familiarity but the slight difference. So that's an interesting thing to kind of ponder.
It's also interesting when I think about that statement as to the sorts of movies and stuff that I kind of think, that one sticks in my mind. And this is a silly example. It's not like one of my favourites, but I always remember seeing Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
And he didn't get back together with the wife at the end. Hollywood movies forevermore.
Yes.
Happy story, family gets back together. He didn't. And I think I think the reason it was successful was Robin Williams, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons that maybe it was received slightly differently, it had all those elements that are the same, all those things that you've seen, but there was some differences. There was a happy ending, but there wasn't the happy ending that people would normally have seen in movies. Yeah, that's really interesting. Interesting to see what else stands out. I mean, in movie and screen, that's...
I'm trying to think of the other movie that did something like that as well, where you wanted it to be a happy ending and it didn't really do that. That made you go, oh, yes. You wanted to love it even more because of that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I think I think some of the time, some of my favourite... Obviously, most of us probably see more movies than stage shows because that's just the way that pop culture works. Yeah. Probably out of my top 5 movies, probably 3 of them have been me turning up to actually the Rialto in Auckland, in Newmarket in Auckland when I was living there as a student, not knowing what they were about and just walking in and seeing them.
Best
and one of them was Green Mile, one of them was Shawshank Redemption. Walked into those without knowing what they were and seeing them.
Oh my goodness! So you would have been just like...
Yeah, and just that was, I mean, Tom Hanks, so I like Tom Hanks, we'll go see that.
Yeah.
And Shawshank Redemption was Morgan Freeman. Like Morgan Freeman, let's go see that.
Yeah, of course.
And that was it. And the other one, I've always said this before, my favourite movie of all times is What's Eating Gilbert Grape. With Johnny Depp and Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Before he was a star.
Yeah.
And really all Johnny Depp, all he was, but he was like a teen heartthrob and that was about it. So it's just these different and unique takes on a topic and a slight twist. Yeah,
they're good. They're good movies to walk into, not knowing what to expect. How cool!
I know that now, but of course at the time you don't have a clue. There's probably this is life when you're talking about statistical odds. I could probably list 50 other ones that I walked into that were like, that was crap.
yeah, exactly. It's a numbers game. But hey, at least they left the impression. but they need to.
As you're in New Zealand at the moment,
Yes.
Are you an Australian citizen in New Zealand? Are you going to be voting in the upcoming election in New Zealand?
Good question. I haven't since I've been over in Aussie. It's an interesting thing to think about, because that's what, now on the 19th of October?
If you say so. I mean, it's not that I'm not aware of it. It's that it's a couple of weeks away. I don't think it's not this weekend or next week, but the weekend after. So whatever that date is.
Yeah. So I'm a New Zealand citizen, so I'm a New Zealand citizen over in Australia. I haven't really thought about permanent residency over there or citizenship over there. Really the only difference is that you get access to government funding. So being over there working, I haven't needed that. Things like super and stuff you're still entitled to and whatnot. So yeah, I haven't really given that a thought.
So thinking about it now, are you gonna vote? Are you gonna vote in this upcoming election?
In this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I don't know how long I'm going to stay here for. So I don't feel, I think for me, having a say in a country that you're not really living in feels a bit, audacious.
You've got some blood on the soil though, haven't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Literally and figuratively.
Yes, well, yes, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I don't see why not.
Interesting. Are you someone who pays attention to that kind of stuff when you're out and about, when you're around in Australia or New Zealand, in America? Is that something you keep an eye on?
I don't really keep an eye on it. It overwhelms me a lot, and I think it's not that I don't have a strong pull to politics.
You're a musician, eh?
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah.
Although some musicians are obviously very politically active, aren't they?
Yeah.
Part of their thing.
Yeah, and I think, and good on them. And for me, to be an artist or musician, I guess that's a political thing. But if you want to go into politics, I guess do that.
It's interesting that the art so often leads revolutions in other areas, though, eh?
Correct.
I remember seeing an interview with Jon Stewart talking to Al Gore. And the point Jon Stewart was making, he was a host of The Daily Show at the time, was because The Daily Show was very good at telling the truth.
Yeah.
When the American news networks were full of shit. And he'd say, why can we do this? And they won't. And Al Gore said, the only person that could tell the king the truth without fear of his head being cut off was the jester.
Right.
So that's the only person that could tell the king that his pants were falling down. And I think, say the jester, I think you could probably say the same in this modern culture about the artist. Yeah. Whatever they are. So I think a lot of the times we have this idea that does art influence culture? Does art influence society? Does art influence, or does it reflect it? Or does it do both?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never actually considered that. And in you saying that just now, I would say it does. It's both.
Yeah, I
would say it's
does.
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it should be.
Yeah. Do you, when you're involved with your voice, your acting, your singing, do you do much original stuff?
No, actually, there has been no original stuff released, but no, because it's mostly just covers or music theatre, which is other people's stuff.
Is that something that interests you? Is that something that's in your 10-year plan?
Well, yeah, I guess so. COVID's just like bringing up so many things, but I think so. I think I'll just naturally let that grow as it needs to, because you have to be able to collaborate with people in a space in where you both are on the same wavelength, and that sounds a bit silly, but it is that. I always thought, okay, it's just someone you think's really good, and you reach out to them and you collaborate. It's not actually that. There's still got to be a good vibe between you both. So yeah, I think I'll let that do its thing, and because of the availability in music theatre and not having enough space around being able to sit down and create with other people, I think being out of that 8-show a week routine opens up more opportunities for original stuff. Yeah,
but still 8 shows a week, that's pretty,
it's hectic.
Yeah. Is that every night, or is that 6 nights with 2 matinees?
It's either 5 or 6 depending on the schedule. So usually it goes, if we're doing one night off, it'll go Tuesday night to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, double Saturday, one Sunday.
Wow.
Otherwise it'll go Monday, Tuesday off, double Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, double
So
Saturday,
interesting,
double Sunday.
double Wednesday.
Mm.
So what, is that like a 5 p.m. and a 9 p.m. or how does? Because I would think on the weekdays, like I think about a double day show and I think about a matinee,
Yeah.
which is a Sunday to 2 p.m. because
Yeah.
it's a weekend. How do they do a double on a Wednesday?
Double on a Wednesday, you do a 1 o'clock or a 2 o'clock show, and then you do a 7:30 evening.
That's got to be proof of a successful freaking show. If
Yeah.
if they can fill up a Wednesday 1 p.m.
Yeah.
That's got to be
Yeah.
testament to this thing. You know,
It's pretty good, and I think the usual house capacity in theatres in Australia are about 18 to 2,200 seats.
Wow.
So it's pretty. I think the Civic in Auckland is 2,000, isn't it?
something like that. I don't know
Yeah,
exactly.
that's impressive.
Great ceiling.
Yeah, so good.
I guess you'd probably see a lot of, not all, but a lot of grey heads in that one, and maybe the school kids and that'll be the ones they'd come to, wouldn't it? The Wednesday 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
Like
because
big blocks.
I was always curious about that because aren't kids at school or, you know, so
Well,
yeah,
I imagine
but
they do.
They fill them out.
Yeah, I
so.
imagine that some schools. I mean, I know that my kids, when they've got they're in the orchestra and stuff, they go out during the day to see the Dunedin Symphony Orchestra. That's when they go. They don't go.
Oh,
to
true.
Yeah, so that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Don't know.
it's nice having school groups in.
I noticed did you play Deloris and Sister Act?
Yes.
I saw a few clips online of that, but they didn't have any of the clips of kind of because I'm assuming it's just someone with a cell phone, so it's a bit dodge. But I didn't see any clips with the everybody knows the big tunes from the film. Are they obviously there's some other songs as well for the show, which makes sense. But do they do all the big songs from the film in it?
No, so I had the same question when I got asked to do the show. I just assumed that they would have the songs from the film in the show, but they don't. None of the songs from the show.
None at all?
None.
Wow.
They're all Alan Menken originals. I think that. Sorry if I got that wrong. All originals.
How does that go over? Because if I did what I did at the Rialto and just walk out without knowing too much,
Yeah.
I'd be going like,
where
I want all the
Happy
songs
Days?
exactly.
Where is Eyes on a Sparrow and all of that? Yeah, I was surprised, but they're so catchy that they become part of what you know of Sister Act if you watch the stage show. So yeah, I got over that pretty quickly because of the writing and because of the music. It's just easy to catch on to.
So is the storyline similar to the
it's
movie?
the same storyline, yeah.
So hidden away from the gangsters, yada yada.
Yeah.
Okay, but just with different music.
Much fun. Yeah. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder as well, and since what happened with Disney Plus and Hamilton, obviously that was huge during lockdown.
Yeah.
I wonder how many other of the big shows are going to do the
chuck it on Disney Plus and let everyone watch it,
or on HBO or on Netflix or whatever it is, because that was actually filmed. That wasn't filmed for Disney Plus. It was filmed in like 2016 or something like that.
Yeah, I wonder if it was their preview.
No, it wasn't. It was one that they did because I know that the guy who plays King George had to come back for it.
Okay,
so
right.
he had already moved on, and one of the thanks they have at the end was to the person playing King George who stepped aside to let the original guy come back so they could do the original cast.
Oh, whoa!
Yeah, so that was obviously a significant run into it, but it certainly wasn't done for Disney. It was done, and then obviously
I wonder what
Disney
they did it
purchased
for.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe for their own
just
record.
to have an archival. A good quality archival.
Or maybe it's a DVD, if those things still exist, that you buy from the foyer as you're walking out.
Yes, well, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. Wow.
But I wonder if other ones are thinking about doing that same sort of thing. I mean, I haven't seen Book of Mormon. Book of Mormon came to Auckland, or did it come? Would it get cancelled just because of COVID?
It got cancelled. Yeah, I saw a couple of people on the ferry over to Waiheke, and they were in the show, and they got cancelled just before they.
Well, I'm assuming that means at some stage it'll come back. I'd love to see Book of Mormon, but if I couldn't see the live stage show, I mean, it's a pretty good second bet to see the original cast and on a 65-inch screen sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
With popcorn.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how I mean, that experience of live theatre is just kind of second to none, really, isn't it?
It completely is. I remember the quote from Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting. You've got the Robin Williams character and the Matt Damon character, and they're in the office with Robin Williams, and he's being the counsellor.
Yes.
And he's telling Matt Damon how smart he is and how he knows every fact about everything in the world or every fact about the Mona Lisa. And then he goes, "But you don't know how the Louvre smells." Because you've never set foot in the actual gallery where the thing is. You know, and I think there's such a lot of truth in that the experience often gives you far more information than just the knowledge. So I acknowledge I haven't seen Hamilton in the theatre. I only seen it on the thing, and I love it as I see it, but I'm sure I miss 30% of the genius from not being there.
Yeah. I would even up that percentage.
Yeah, okay, fair.
Yeah.
And I know stand-up comedians say that all the time as well, even though there is a culture at the moment about, you know, stand-up comedy on Netflix and that sort of thing. But all of them will say, you know, it's 50% better if you're actually there in the studio.
Yeah, and it's like when you're talking to friends and then you had a good night out and then you go and retell that story to someone and you can't really. So it's like, oh, you kind of have to be there because what I'm saying isn't actually funny. It was how it was experienced within the group. So, yeah, it's definitely that. It's definitely the experience.
Tell me, we talked a bit before about when we're talking about, you know, you said you weren't really into politics. You were but what are you into? So we all sort of have our passions. You know, we all sort of have things that maybe aren't reflected in the job we do.
Yeah.
What's the things that you really enjoy, hold on to, like love? Yeah. The things that'll get you to go down a rabbit warren on the internet and spend hours just getting into.
Do you know, it's an interesting question because before you invited me into chat, I was like, oh, I actually don't feel passionately about politics. And I started feeling guilty about that. And I was like, well, no, that's, you know, a lot of people do. It just, for me, it just gets so noisy, if that makes sense. However, if people come to me and give me the overall stats about what's happening, then I'm okay with the bullet point version of the stats. Like even the debate yesterday. Have no interest in, and nor do I have any more interest listening after watching these two baby boys like fight over like nappies and who's pooed their pants more and whatever. But for me, I was like, what is it that makes you go, oh yes? And I've been talking to a few cast members lately, and I actually really this sounds so cheesy, but I really enjoy the human psyche, and I enjoy healing your own shit. Your self-work, self-awareness, and playfulness, you know, just honing into the inner child stuff, and sexual empowerment. Like it's just those are the things that I always end up getting really excited about when I'm having conversations with people, you know, and I love being wrong. I love it when people call me out on my stuff because I also absolutely love doing the same and calling people out on their stuff with a lot of love as well, because you know we're all managing the stages of our life differently and whatnot. So those are the things that actually get me excited. There's
something very enjoyable I find for me, other people may not, about being the dumbest person in the room. I like that idea about other people being smarter, wiser, more onto it, and then you can learn from them. There's something very cool about that. Yes.
Well, someone very close to me says something like, I think it's a quote from someone, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong place.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
I love that. I love it so much.
If not in the wrong place, maybe you've got the wrong people around you.
Correct.
That'll be the other thing.
Yeah, so I love being intimidated by people's knowledge. And again, this conversation I was having the other night about my knowledge. I just love being able to just take on everyone else's and build that library of bits and bobs. It's really exciting because I went from a space of feeling really dumb to actually being quite blessed, not knowing anything, and being able to get different versions about a topic and then make it make sense in my world. And not go, oh, so-and-so, I've been taught to believe this, so that's what I believe. I'm so happy changing my beliefs if new information comes in. And that's the great thing about beliefs, is that they can change.
How about you at the age you are now versus you? And I'm thinking about, you're talking about learning, and I'm thinking about the things you've talked about, like, and you didn't use the word inner peace, but like in a healing and playfulness, these things that you're learning about or figuring out. How about you today versus you 5 years ago?
Oh God.
Have you been on a journey? And tell us about that if you have. I mean, what's been going on with you?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm starting to look at life in chunks now, as opposed to this line, and that's more exciting because today could be completely different to tomorrow, and what I say here today I could change my mind tomorrow. So I guess there's a freedom in that, and not having to have a strong opinion or belief about something because we don't know everything, and so once new info comes in, that should shift that. But 5 years ago, oh God, yeah, there's definitely been a journey as such, and I think you have to be curious enough to know what makes you tick, curious enough to understand and want to understand how you operate in the world and why, and not judge it as good or bad. I think there was a moment there where I would always think, oh, the angry little Māori's coming out, and think that it is bad because, but if you're not hurting people and you just understand it as something that is part of you, then for me that's awesome. Well,
but then also emotions are emotions, and they're self-validating at times. Yes, I have a conversation with my kids, not irregularly, that if they're angry about something, that's. I mean, I actually had this conversation yesterday with my 14-year-old about the thing about emotions is what we try not to do is weaponize them.
Yes.
If you're angry with someone in an appropriate way, then there's nothing wrong with that. I think so many people get taught, and I think girls and women are expected to squash those things down and be nice. And I'm like, it's not, you're not gonna be nice. But we don't weaponize. If you're angry with this person because they're being a dick, then you're allowed to be angry with them, and you're allowed
maybe they're just a dick.
But you're allowed to explain that to them. You're allowed to vocalize it. But what is probably what we don't do is then weaponize it. In other words, you don't treat them like a pile of shit. Just for the sake of it. But there's always a line there as well. And I said to her yesterday, I'm like, if someone was abusing you, like as in physically, then kick them in the balls and punch them. So you go do it back because that would be appropriate. So I think that's a really important thing for people to learn, that your emotional response is innate. You can't really control it. Which means it's self validating on some level. But we don't. When I say we, I guess I'm saying I will try as much as possible, other than there might be some outlying times it's okay,
of course,
to not weaponize those emotions, because then my attack on that person is maybe emotional response rather than, okay, I have these emotions, now I need a proper response to it. Two cool things that I like about emotions is that they're all just as valid as each other. So I was doing yoga teacher training, and one of our facilitators said something really cool. She said, why can't we hold space for people that are super angry the way we hold space when people are super excited? And I love that. And I don't know the truth in this stat, but apparently emotions only chemically last for 90 seconds. Which is why I love the saying, give me a minute, because you kind of need a minute, like a minute and a half to be exact. We can check those stats later. But a minute and a half is when it's chemically going through the body. And so I like allowing that and allowing myself to wallow in whatever needs to be wallowed in. And then I always say, if I'm angry, I wait for the heat to go before I speak on anything. Whereas, 5 years ago, angry little Māori would just totally go handy straight away. So it's a nice thing to go, oh my gosh, yeah, emotions are all just as valid as each other, and give yourself a minute. I guess that's 60 seconds. Just breathe for 60 seconds.
Or yell or cry or whatever it is.
Makes me think as well the difference between like an emotional response. Like, so we had a very sad incident in the house yesterday for the kids. One of their little rabbits passed away.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's really sad. And I'm thinking about when you were saying emotional, I'm learning from you now, you see.
Okay, gorgeous. You are.
Obviously their grief lasted a lot longer than
Yes.
90 seconds.
Yes.
And is still there today. So I'm now thinking like the difference between emotion, like the emotion
And a mood.
the emotion of being, is the emotion being sad, and what grief is, and there's obviously some kind of line between the two of them.
Fair
where
call.
one is an emotion and it's got that chemical reaction, but then maybe the head and not the heart because it's a muscle, but the spiritual emotional person then
Well, then
holds on to
essentially,
something
then
else.
I guess we start talking about mood.
Yeah.
Then, isn't it? Because it's that, and also to go back to that 90-second thing, it's after that 90-second, it's us replaying that emotional or that moment to then relive that emotion.
Right.
Therefore, we're in that space of being in a certain mood, so to speak. But yeah, it is an interesting thing because then, then we can start talking about the timeline in grief and people put pressures and expectations around that.
Or they talk about the 7 stages of anger.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. So then I guess then is that just a matter of having 7 stages of that 90 seconds being played out, or is it so I mean it's a good conversation to have. I don't have the answers, but it's an interesting concept, and I've enjoyed playing with that and watching how that 90 seconds would play out. And it really is, the entire body will just feel whatever that heat is or sensation is. And then your brain is able to come back in and go, okay, now that we've had that, what would I do to move forward once this emotion isn't leading that decision? Because I think that's where it can get a bit dangerous, is when the emotion leads the decision.
See, I have this kind of conversation, and this is what I think, like, people say, I'm a spiritual person or whatever. Yeah. But this is actually what that is. Because it's sort of an intangible between and I'll use the word heart. I don't think love comes from the heart because it's just a muscle. But that idea we talk about the head-heart decisions, the what is emotion versus grief, what is awe versus anger, or the response versus the ongoing pain or whatever. That's what I think when I think about, as a species, being an emotional or spiritual person. That's sort of, it's the intangible. I can fix a broken arm by going to a doctor, putting a cast on it. A quote unquote broken heart. That's something very different.
And I guess then we start talking about energy, because I mean, then again, that is a tangible thing. That's something we do understand. So it doesn't need to go into a crazy spiritual land. And I love the spiritual gangster label, because it's being able to, when I was doing yoga teacher training, I was like, does that mean I have to then go in that full vegan and have to wear those
Eastern philosophy worldview,
and have to wear the tights and stuff and always feel namaste? Oh my gosh, hell no! Like, the namaste is work, when you're trying to hold space for others and get an understanding of where they're at without wanting to punch their faces at times. I'm saving lives every day by not punching faces. But so it's that thing of just and there's nothing against that either. For me personally, you can exist in a space where it all is encompassed in one center. So I like just going, okay, well, how as a human am I operating, and where is it? It all obviously stems from childhood stuff, and it's not a good thing or a bad thing. Like, I now know, okay, if I'm feeling protective over people, I know where that comes from. It used to come from a space of lack, but now that I understand that's something that I do, it's just now part of the makeup. It's I have no judgment on it. I just know that that's in there.
You seem to have. It feels like you've travelled a path, because to speak in this way. For people that I know who speak in this way, and on some levels, I put my hand up and say I've been on a path and a journey as well.
Yeah, of course.
Is things like self-reflection and often input from the outside. I've said numerous times on this podcast that I always think about my life being like a rugby field.
Yeah.
I'm a New Zealander, so I have to use a rugby analogy.
You didn't have to, but you know.
Well, it's the law.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah,
in Otago, it's the law.
I vote against it. No, I'm kidding.
And that on that field, there's 30 players and there's a referee. But you know, if I'm in the scrum or in the front row and I'm in a maul or whatever, I don't actually know what the fullback's doing. Yeah. Even though that's my life. Whereas someone sitting in the stands looking down on my life, can sometimes have a better perspective on. Of course. On the game, and they can see that the wing is open or that the fullback's hurt their ankle, when even though I'm on the field, I can't see it. Yeah. So I like the idea of having external input from an appropriate source, from someone who can look on my field and go, hey, the wing is open, or whatever the analogy then leads to. So what I'm saying is it seems like you've had some kind of journey, certainly, as I said, I don't know who or what or where or how, but what you're saying feels very well thought through and very considered based on experience. Yeah, I think the latter of that comment being based on experience, because it is, and you know, and I'm so okay with sharing. You know, the upbringing was a tough one, but I'm grateful for it. You know, and so many people play into victimizing themselves through those experiences, you know, and you see a lot of spiritual people speaking, and it often feels like they're speaking from rote as opposed to experience. Yep. Again, no judgment on that. It's just you can feel and understand the authenticity when you know they're speaking based on experience. Yeah. So yeah, it is. Well, you hear the authenticity and when you're talking about your stuff and what you know, and that's cool. You sound very wise. Oh gosh! Once again, I'm the dumbest person in the room. Oh no, I need to be the dumbest person in the room. You talk to me about politics. I think actually going back to politics and your analogy with your life, I think that's how I feel with politics and watching all this chaos happen, and I feel like I'm observing it. It feels like observation, going, okay, we need this chaos clearly for us to then be in a space where we make decisions and look at people with the way they're coming together and why they're coming together. It's, you know, it's at least. I did chuckle to myself when you talked about not paying attention to politics because you're watching these two little boys running around pooing their pants, because I actually thought you were talking about the presidential debate for a second. Because you were. Oh, good. Because I thought that's about a perfect analogy. Yes, those two little boys pooing their pants. I was absolutely talking about. Oh, because you were listening to it as you were going down. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I had to turn it off. I was hungover, if I'm being honest, and so like any noise. So that noise was so loud. It literally looked like just two boys down their nappies throwing poo at one another. It was gorgeous. It was a fairly horrific thing. We won't go into that. I've just spent an hour talking to an American pundit. Oh yes. Who, we can leave that to that conversation. That's what we're talking about. We won't bore ourselves with that again. What we should do, let's bring this guy up. We should have a look at. Oh, did that work? It didn't work. Oh look, my MacBook's gone off. Oh. Can't do that. I can. Give me 10 seconds. Talk to me about the show that's going on at the moment. Please. And while you talk to me about it, you can do technical things. I'll do technical things, and I will fix up the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Akina. We're just waiting on Pat. It's called The Show Must Go On, the best of Broadway. The shows must go on, yes. And you can catch ticket sales at www.theshows.co.nz. So basically, it's just 6 people, not just because these 6 people are incredible, yes, inclusive of self, 6 people that have been, 6 Kiwis that have been spread across the globe for probably over a decade, I'd say. I'm saying that just because that's how far I've been away. Ta-da! We just
the shows must go on. Yay! And it is. It's literally a whole lot of songs from Broadway put together, and you just have this feast of absolute camp gorgeousness, along with a bit of fun, heartstrings. So we've got Dreamgirls, Greatest Showman, We Will Rock You, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, Hairspray's in there as well. Is that all of them, or is there more? Is that just a sample of it? More. That's just a sample. It's so. And the guys.
Hayden T, yourself, Paul Ross, Verity Burgess, Jack Fraser, Emily Burns, and
Gorgeous.
I was looking at the tickets for it, and I think we've got a little map here. So you are just starting off, really.
Yeah.
Because you've just done Christchurch, Ashburton, Oamaru, and you're in Dunners now.
Yeah.
But you are going sort of everywhere.
Yeah, it's insane. I have never experienced my country like this. My country, I don't own it, but New Zealand, I've never experienced New Zealand like this. So it's going to be really cool. However, everywhere so far is in and out. So Christchurch, we were there the longest because we had rehearsals there. But I've been in 3 beds in the last 3 nights.
Wow.
What a sluzzy. 1, 2, yeah. And so we're in Dunedin now, aren't we?
Yep.
We're off to, I thought we were in Invercargill tomorrow.
Should we have a look at the dates?
Yeah, let's have a look.
So Dunedin.
Oh, we are.
Yep, Dunedin on the 2nd, Invercargill on the 3rd.
Yep.
Go back up to Gore on the 4th.
Yes.
Queensland on the 5th. Nelson on the 7th. So there you go, like a day off that's because that's a big frickin' drive.
Yeah.
Probably up the west coast.
How long is that drive?
Well, I know from Dunedin to Wanaka is about 4. No, it's not 4, but 3.5. Then from basically Wanaka out to the west is probably another 3 to 4. So you're probably looking at 3 to 4 to get to the west. It might be, I don't know, 9 hours.
Whoa.
I don't know. Someone who knows the route's going to be screaming at me.
I'd have no idea.
9 or 10 hours maybe. So but that's a big drive. Hopefully you'll go up the west coast because if you've never driven up the west coast before, for people who haven't,
that'll be stunning.
Gorgeous
That
drive.
will be so stunning. Yeah, it's exciting. And I will be in Hawke's Bay on my birthday, and so I think I'll have most of my family there and they haven't been able to really watch me perform in Australia, so that's going to be exciting.
The show I noticed at Auckland is last.
Yes.
Was there any, as you know, was there any plans for that? Because obviously Auckland is still in level 2.
Yeah.
And was it like we need to give Auckland as long as possible, or is it just circumstantial that's how it was planned anyway?
No, I think that's how it was planned anyway. And I think if we remained what level were they at?
They're at 2 now, I think.
Yeah, they
Where
had
they can have
contingency
100
plans.
or less.
Yeah, because I think they were able to do 100 in each area, like the Stalls, Circle and Grand, and keep them to their facilities so no one could, cross over into the next. So that was a smart way to kind of think about that.
Yeah. So North Island you're going, so you're ending up in Auckland on the 7th. So if people are listening to this rather than watching, Wellington, Parapara Umu, Palmy North, Whanganui, New Plymouth, Tauranga, Auckland. So there's one in Auckland City there as well. So Auckland City then coming back in. So Auckland City, Rotorua, Gisborne, Hastings, Hamilton, Kirikiri, Whangarei, and then back to Auckland.
Whew.
So 2 in Auckland. So you got Auckland on the 22nd, 23rd of October, and then back to Auckland on the 7th
so 3 in
of November.
Auckland, really.
Yeah. So it's a pretty. We get bands and acts coming through, but that's a fairly significant itinerary.
Yeah, it is, and I actually have no idea how I'm going to manage it because I've never had to find ways to do that. Like even having our suitcase, we have a suitcase for the truck, and then our bags for the hotel. And the bags in the hotel have to fit in the van. So it's this. We've got someone, Paul. We call him, as in me, call him Dad because he's such a dad. He's doing the Tetris game at the back. He's really good at it. And we have to then make sure that the stuff that we need at the theatre are in the bag that is going to the theatre. That's on the truck with the tech crew. Otherwise, you then have to do all this running around with it and making sure. Yeah, it's pre-planning galore.
Well, and I guess as you're basically kind of saying this, for someone whose experience is 6 weeks in a theatre in Sydney and then 6 weeks in a theatre in Melbourne, or however the roster goes, that night to night to night to night must be a bit of a freak out.
Yeah, it is, and I'm just trying not to have freakouts about it and not be in that space where I need it to be what it used to be. And so just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. So, I think I've got it down. I've got my little bathroom bag that goes in the duffel bag that goes in the such good stats in the van, and then the theatre bag I'll just swap clothes out, and then we've got to think about washing, and then you got to think about if the hotel doesn't have cutlery. It's just because I'm used to being at least 2 to 3 months in one space.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
The good thing about this you can see, though, is if you're finishing up kind of end of the first week of November, that means you must be in New Zealand for Chrissy, hang around for a few more weeks, and then Christmas in New Zealand.
Yeah. Unless something else comes up and I have to head on over and do the Aussie trip.
The role of I was going to say contractor. Is that kind of what you are? I guess you get employed. You get employed by are you employee of that show for that time?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And so you're on payroll for that. Whereas something like this, you'd be contractor, I guess. Yeah.
You guess. Yeah. You're not too sure. Yeah. They'll give me some money at the end. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Oh no, you do have to send a thing to ask them to pay you. So yeah, I guess that's contractor.
Out of interest, without obviously getting to anyone's finances, never want to do that.
Yeah.
For someone who's doing what you're doing in Australia, when the world is normal, not now, you know, and you've got shows on and gigs on, how many months would someone have to work a year to kind of be able to pay for themselves to live for a whole year? Is it like you need 300 dates a year to do that, or do you need to find 6 months worth of work to pay for the whole year, or how does it work?
Oh, I see. That's a good question, because I haven't, again, it's been unusual to be here for a contract like this. So it really all depends as well, because then again we're getting into personal margins and you know, how you negotiate your fee, and how, for me, I like to consider the producers. I like to consider, you know, where that's coming from. And, you know, so something like Disney, I would
Add a zero.
Yeah, add a couple, you know. So again, that all depends. Something like a New Zealand project, I would still keep an eye on, you know, what I give to the work and make sure that doesn't get compromised. But then also,
has this been a lot of rehearsal? Or I get by that, I guess I mean people who are involved in, you know, musical theatre I would guess would basically know most of these songs anyway.
Well, you'd hope so. Someone like me, so hopeless with musical theatre, someone who's actually studied musical theatre, I don't know many. So mostly the ones, obviously, that I've worked on. We had, I think, 10 days to put this together. There was a lot of backing vocals that needed to be done, a lot of harmonies that needed to be learnt, a lot of work that had to be done before we arrived in the rehearsal room, but there was still a lot of stuff that was getting finalised as well, so it was hard to pre-plan anything or prep enough when things were still, you know, getting sorted. So yeah, this is definitely a new experience, and you have to trust your process at this point. You have to go, well, I must. We know we're going to get through this. We don't know how, but we just have to. We have no other option. You know, one of the guys, Hayden too, said, "Look, our egos are too big for us not to get this right." So, you know, that's kind of where we're at. But we're starting to settle into the show, which is really nice. And
once you've then done all that work, that pre-prep, can you just now roll into Queenstown? Show done, or is there still more work to do now on the show as you go, or turn up and do it, get out?
Yeah, well, for me personally, there's always work to be done, always. So it's just finding that balance of giving yourself a break and making sure you're on top of the work, because like anything, if you don't use it, you lose it. So you either get better as an artist or you get worse. You don't really stay the same. One of our musical directors on Lion King, Clem Ishmael, he said that. He goes, as an artist, you don't stay the same. You either get worse or you get better. So that kind of freaks me out. So for me, there's always work to be done. So at the moment, the schedule looks something like we rock up to the new theatre. We do a 4:30 walkthrough just to understand how the space works. An induction. We'll do a sound check, and then we'll go warm up, eat some food, and entertain the masses and keep them super happy.
So again, if people are interested, and look, I mean, there's literally too many, well, there's not literally, I'm choosing not to mention the towns because there's so many of them, but you're freaking everywhere.
Yeah, we are.
It's the shows, with an S on the end, theshows.co.nz, and whenever you watch this podcast or listen, as long as it's before the 7th of November 2020, you're going to find some show on sometime somewhere. We're
going to be in a town near you. It's such a jingle line, isn't it? But we literally are going to be somewhere near you. So come along.
And look, if people want to know more about you, they want to connect with you and find out about you. What do you do? Send people to Instagram, send them to your website?
Oh, here's the thing. Maybe just my website and Instagram. Again, I'm so hopeless on these things, on the social medias and the website thing. I need to update everything. I need someone to maybe help me. So if someone can help me with this,
are you
please holler.
Looking for some help there?
Well, yeah, look at me. I mean, look at that thing there, #influencing. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's and
I thought that was quite funny, wasn't it? Are you taking the piss there a little bit?
Well, yeah. I was being completely honest. Even videos, I have no idea how to. A friend messaged and said, "Please, can you?" I have no idea what I'm doing. A friend asked me, they said, can you please repost a video because not the whole video is in the thing. I had a gig with Aloe Black and I was posting this thing thinking I was really awesome and I cut off his head. But I didn't know that. I was just reposting, like posting a photo and thought I was being really awesome with the Instagram and I wasn't. So I cut his head off. I'm so sorry.
Well, let me help you out by saying akinamaria.com.
Yeah.
Akina Maria, Akina Maria.com. People want to find out more about it. And also, from my experience, if you just get online and search your name, Akina or Akina Maria, and then put the voice, they'll find clips in there if they want to check you out.
Yeah, good. You can be my publicist.
Sure. 30%.
Done.
Hey, thanks for coming in. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good luck on the tour. And, it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much.